Again, good morning to your many viewers. Well, it's obvious. I mean, your most fundamental right is that of safety and security. If that fundamental right you cannot acquire it, it is going to totally cripple the economy, it'll cripple the country, and obviously it is going to have an impact going straight into the communities. That's why I really appreciate what it is you just said. The importance of that community development, getting a community to have that degree of association by having specific meetings. And these things are not cosmetic. They play a very big part towards the reduction of crime. Getting a community to work together, to associate themselves, to try to get young persons away from a life of crime. It is what, like for example, when I had the Commissioner's Cup, using football as an avenue to turn young people away from a life of crime, utilizing their energies in the right manner. So when you have this type of community development, workshops, meetings, dialogue, it plays a very big part in uniting a community, the unification of a community. Then you have another community doing the same thing, build. And with that, now you can get a better country. So unless it is that we can find proper avenues to reduce crime, obviously it is going to cripple a country and obviously affect the communities. Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
start.
What I notice a lot is that we have the media. They speak a lot to criminologists in this country, and they speak about criminologists pertaining to everything under the sun. But the main thing for a criminologist is to understand the cause of crime and to conduct interviews. And that's what they don't do. And the reason I'm stating that is that in the United Kingdom, they conducted a comprehensive interview with about 5,000 criminals as to why they committed robbery. And they said it was because of unemployment and the need for money. And no, it is not a justification, but it shows the angle of where it is. That is why I'm glad that we said from a village council where they're trying to get employment opportunities for young men and women. Because you provide the opportunities, it will diminish the possibility that the person may make the wrong choice. And again, this I want to re-emphasize. I'm not trying to justify the person for doing it, but give the people the opportunities, give the citizens that chance. And that is where, so from a police perspective, as much as the police could do so much, when you have communities like this and you have councils like what she's speaking about, it plays such a big part towards reducing crime because giving young persons the opportunity, as I mentioned, you could use sport to turn your energies away from a life of crime, providing better health facilities, better educational programs, better role modeling, counseling, and then also providing them with opportunities such as employment. You can actually turn someone because um, that path to righteousness, it could be very narrow, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. You give them that opportunity, they can actually turn into being a role of somebody of value to our society. As it pertains to the communities, what we have noticed is from being a minister of national security in 2013 or 2015 to being commissioner of police 3 years later, we noticed that there started being migration of criminal elements because again crime is a product of opportunity. So what happened is that certain criminal elements, they would have understood, look, I have maximized the opportunity of utilizing the resources in this community, so let me move elsewhere. This is what could very well be happening in Tobago. So the criminal elements in Trinidad, they realize because of the competition being fierce or whatever, certain individuals may very well have seen now Tobago becoming a soft target. Let me migrate to Tobago. Let me utilize the opportunities here in Tobago to enhance and expand my criminal enterprise. Which is why it's simple things that I did as Minister of National Security that had Tobago virtually crime free. It is no longer there. We have to really open and understand this is much more than just trying to blame police officers. You go on the boat and you have to walk through the scanner to get onto the boat because you want to make sure that you don't have drugs or weapons, but every single vehicle goes onto the boat without being checked. Now that is ridiculous. And so you're trying so much to try to lock down Tobago to prevent it from being um, infiltrated with drugs and weapons, but you're not checking the vehicles. I provided the scanner from the as a commissioner of police service, the police service. They shut it down. The scanners are there that could be used to make sure we monitor every vehicle that enters Tobago. By doing that, you minimize the opportunity, you minimize the weapons, the drugs, or whatever to make Tobago safer. So that's just one of dozens of things that can be done to actually assist in the crime reduction in Tobago.
Okay, Mr. Griffith, now from a national point of view, are we seeing any correlation between illiteracy and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, definitely. But what I will do, I will expand it even beyond illiteracy because even educated young men can be influenced, because the fact is that these gang leaders, they could sell ice to the Eskimos, so they are very influential. And if it is you do not have the proper role models in your society, in your village, in your community, these individuals can now be easily influenced to turn towards the direction of how the gang leaders will try to influence them. So the individuals may be articulate, they will listen, and they will turn to a life of crime by understanding that, listen, this is what you can get, this is what you can acquire. And so speaking about illiteracy is one aspect, but let's even go further to the fact of even the parents, the other persons within the homes. When you see that this young man just turns up there with wads of cash, gold chains, providing you with everything, you indirectly now can be involved in assisting this young man to meet his debt, because sooner or later there's going to be a price for him to pay. So I would not even use the word illiteracy. I will prefer to use the word of proper education, and making sure there are those types of role models in a country, in a society, in a village, to ensure that these young persons can have the type of support, guidance, counseling, so they can then make the choice. If they do not have that, that provides the product of opportunity for the criminal elements to easily motivate and influence them to turn the wrong direction.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well,
It,
so that gang intelligence unit in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, it plays a critical part in getting the proper information that the police can then use to ensure an efficient operation. That intelligence unit, it is not just simply police just trying to um to spy or see how they could acquire it. It involves the community as well. So what you will have is specifically, so, sometimes you have um, police officers where it is that they're involved directly with the communities. And that not every police officer is trained to understand how to work in an environment. They must be so what I was doing was actually having police officers assigned specifically to locations, so they become part and parcel of the community. That will allow better trust, and with that, more information can then come to the police officer. You also have something that we never had before in Trinidad and Tobago. In New York City, for example, in the NYPD, they have 35,000 odd police officers. About 5,000 of them, the other 30 do not even know. They drive taxis, they sell hot dogs. They're known as, what do you call it, covert operatives, sleeper cells, moles. We started doing that. We did not have an undercover police officer. So you might a police officer in plain clothes is not an undercover police officer. We are speaking about putting police officers deep inside that even the criminal elements do not know. All of this forms part of what you have a proper, established, developed country intelligence unit to deal with gangs, even getting police officers to infiltrate into the gangs. So you have that aspect. You have the technology that can be used, the technology that is available put an end to kidnapping in Trinidad and Tobago. People couldn't understand how it is that we were able to actually arrest kidnappers whilst they were still holding the hostages. That never happened before. Kidnapping came to an end because of it. Home invasions came to an end, known as predictive policing, anticipating what they were doing through social media monitoring, through intelligence agencies, and all of this is the concept of what we speak about when we talk about an intelligence unit to deal with gangs. Gangs obviously play a primary role in the major crimes that we have in this country. But again, we have been speaking so much about the communities and the work that the communities are doing, especially the role models and persons on either side of me right now. But the state has a critical part to play in this, and that is why, as you mentioned, with the intelligence unit, so you have proper policing. But if it is that, again, this intelligence unit in the dealing in the police service, we discovered that the state has a part to play in causing it to happen by giving state contracts to criminal elements. Now, that starts to happen in Tobago. You start giving these criminal elements state contracts. You pay them $5 million to build a $10,000 box train. They are not using the profit towards developing the community. They're going to use the profit to purchase more weapons, get more drugs, bring more persons into Tobago, and then cause further crime. So we have to be very careful not to feed the animal, because it does not help. This type of work can and these funds can be used directly to the communities rather than be given to certain individuals that may cause crime to increase. So it's a holistic thing, and I do ask that, as much as the persons who are senior individuals in communities, they are doing their job, but it is going to make it difficult, if not impossible, for them to succeed unless the state picks up and do what is required. So,
okay, and
as we spoke about opportunities, and that is what crime is. Crime is a product of opportunity. The greater the deterrent, the less likelihood persons would commit crime, because there's a greater possibility of them being apprehended. So you could have lots of money right here on this table. And then if it is the person believes that it's easy for him to grab it and walk away, there's a greater chance he will do it. If he's aware that there are deterrents, that will turn him away from it. This is what I did as Minister of National Security. When I tried to lock down Tobago, and the reason by locking down Tobago, I said a safer Tobago means a safer Trinidad. Reason being, by keeping Tobago safe, if Tobago starts getting like Trinidad, you have to start taking resources from Trinidad to bring it into Tobago. That weakens Trinidad's problem. That makes it harder, sorry, for Trinidad and Tobago. So when we set up something like the National Operations Center in Tobago, these things have all been shut down. That operational command center was able to have persons there 24 hours a day monitoring all the cameras in Tobago, locking down Tobago, putting GPS tracking on all the police vehicles, we set up what was known as a rapid response unit. And then after it was shut down, when I became commissioner of police, I turned it into the emergency response unit, making sure, so like Tobago, for example, there were 10 vehicles, and these 10 vehicles are supposed to patrol 24 hours a day, GPS tracking. So we monitor their area of responsibility, make sure they stay within it. And then you have a proper call system. So that call system of a 999, what I was setting up was to ensure that that 999 call, I don't know if you're aware, you call 999 here in Tobago, it goes to Trinidad, and then it has to be fed back here, which is ridiculous. So you set up a proper system where anybody makes a call here in Tobago, it is fed immediately to that operational command center 999 system. They can then look at the police vehicles in closest proximity to that distress call. And what you're going to get now, you're speaking about at least a 5 minutes or less response time. That is the product of opportunity that is now going to be diminished by the criminal elements because they realize I jump a wall, I invade a home, I commit a crime. There's a possibility somebody now can contact that 999 system linked to Tobago's operational command center. You're seeing all of the police vehicles through the GPS tracking, and now you can immediately respond to that crime scene. That's just one of the several things that would have been done to try to diminish crime in Tobago, and it should be reignited.
Are you looking at, and let me just ask Mr. Griffith here, in your tenure, was there real efforts to change the mentality of the individuals who may turn their life to crime?
Yeah, definitely. We would have seen from through and again, I use sport as a heavy system through that Commissioner's Cup and the actually had Teenager Tobago. So you actually had trying to turn persons away from a life of crime through utilizing their energies in a different manner. Also bringing in the business sector. The business sector in Tobago, I would ask them, they need to step forward and assist in the communities. My wife, Nicole Dyer Griffith, what she did is she formed something called I Support Our Service. That is something that is done worldwide, and it helps the communities. It also helps the police service. So if it is the state is unable to provide the resources for the police officers, the business sector, what they were doing was seeing about repairing the generator, repairing the building, repairing the small parts required to have that police vehicle operational again. And the end result is the evil elements in our society. And I say evil, they went out of their way to try to find something negative about it. But that building of that relationship and trust between the community and the police, between the business sector and the police, it plays a big part towards unifying. Because when you put all of these persons together, you circle that wagon. Who's going to lose out? The criminals. And that is what is important. I want to mention another quick point again. As you spoke about the firearms, going back when there was a time in 2014, the United Kingdom, they were going to impose visas on Trinidad and Tobago. I was given 9 months to put many things in place. One involved locking down our ports because it was easy access for illegal weapons and drugs. And again, I want to mention, all we have to do is to put anything could leave Trinidad, enter Tobago through our boats without any checks being made. It is comical that you ask people to walk through a scanner and then your car and your truck is going through without it being checked. The canines were there. I set up the canines. I set up the vehicles. So the vehicles, it's a vehicle that any vehicle that passes, you will see if a weapon is there. Why would you shut down all of these things? You cannot play politics when it comes to securing Tobago.
And I'm sure during your stint as Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police, you would have had confront that kind of situation that you may have to intervene on. Speak to that. And how do we treat with those miscreants?
Sure. So there are several different factors that play a part towards crime reduction. My comrades on my left spoke about the importance of prayer and religion. So I'm not going to Christopher this and try to speak about divine intervention. So what?
don't, don't attack the commissioner, please. Don't attack the commissioner, please.
I didn't say so.
All right.
So those persons who have a religious understanding know the importance of prayer.
Yeah.
The police, they have their job to do and not just seeking divine intervention. So the problem that exists is that you're quite correct, and that is where, unfortunately, when you throw the baby with the bathwater, when you politicize crime, we saw that. We saw the problems that existed where young persons, they go the wrong direction, and then what happens is quicksand. Because you go into a revolving door in our prison system. Our rehabilitation is terrible. Our recidivism rate in Trinidad and Tobago is one of the highest in this part of the world. Where what I mean is that a young person charged with a misdemeanor, he will go into prison, and by the time he comes out a hardened criminal because of the people he associates himself with. So that whole system, which is why I drafted the Ministry of Justice in 2010 under the People's Partnership, to have that Ministry of Justice totally revamp our justice system to ensure that when young men or women, they are apprehended for a small crime, you do proper training. As a commissioner of police, I worked at not just for using sport through the Commissioner's Cup, but we had things called street talk. Street talk involved police officers actually getting on the block, speaking to the young persons, playing sports with them. We also had something called Crossroads, where you had 1,000 police officers being trained to be a big brother or sister with 1,000 at-risk youths. So instead of them being found guilty and being incarcerated, I was making arrangements with the courts. Let this police officer be their big brother, stay with them, work with them, counsel them, nurture them. And that is how the police can assist in the development of young persons who may be shifting in the wrong direction.
All right, Mr. Griffith, I don't know. You, as former Minister of National Security, would have an idea as to whether the judicial system needs addressing in a serious way, thereby fixing it so it works efficiently, so that justice is not denied.
No, definitely. Okay, so there are three aspects in crime reduction: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And this came from uh, criminology in the United Kingdom. The primary involves the policing, you'll see hard targeting, law enforcement, high visibility, deterrence, rapid response, policing. That is primary crime prevention. Secondary involves avenues to turn young persons away from a life of crime, which is what we spend a lot of time dealing with today. Better opportunities, education, health, counseling, role models, employment. Then you have the tertiary crime prevention, which is the judiciary, the criminal justice system. It is virtually collapsing. And unfortunately, if it is that you reach that point where even as it pertains to, as I said, in recidivism, where persons cannot be rehabilitated, then you're going to have that revolving door. The it was important. That is why you needed to have a Ministry of Justice. But unfortunately, based on politics, as soon as government changed, you shut it down. You cannot have something like that to speak about rehabilitation of young persons and box all this under one Ministry of National Security. We got to think out of the box. So when I just heard the Prime Minister speaking about the nonsense of Ministry of Justice, is because of his ignorance and not understanding the importance of this aspect of national security.
Okay. All right. The whole question of prevention, what the initiatives that are need to be undertaken.
Well, well, in summary, I would have mentioned the number of things that are required. As I said, crime is a product of opportunity. So if it is you provide that deterrent, there's a less likelihood persons would commit a crime. So as I mentioned, the Operational Command Center, the E999 specifically for Tobago, a rapid response unit, GPS tracking. Remember, there was a time when I was commissioner, the criminals were coming across here. What I did, I sent my boys, my team, the Special Operation Response Team. We came across in Tobago and they ran back to Trinidad because we put pressure on them. You got to bully them as well at times. The proper training for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the officers, training, public relations, protocol, customer service training. This is what led public trust and confidence in the police service to move from 14 to 55%. Ensuring the high visibility, the rapid response, and all of these things is good policing. But going back to what my comrades or what they would have been speaking about on the other side, and even the inmate, it is difficult. I want to go back to that concern of that revolving door. When these young men they go into a prison, we're supposed to have a proper prison system to educate young persons, give them opportunities, find what it is that niche, something that they're good at, and build and develop them. So when they come out, they have a job. But what happens instead? They come back out now. You can't get a certificate of character. You become virtually blacklisted because persons remember, oh yeah, he was a jailbird, cannot get a job. He now diverts back to that same criminal element who will try to provide him with an opportunity. And as you mentioned, about young persons, a quick point here, that we believe young persons, they are troublemakers in school. Let me clarify something. There's something known as ADHD. And that ADHD is because of our ignorance in this education system in our country. The ADHD provides it means that a young person, especially boys, 7% in the United States, they suffer from it. And I shouldn't use the word suffer because many persons who have ADHD are some of the most powerful and successful people in the world. ADHD is when it says you can't stay still. You get distracted easily. So you have teachers in our education system. The young boy or girl gets distracted and talks. You are a troublemaker. Get out of my class. You then leave them out, then they lose track. The United States, their system provides for that because ADHD, it's a skill where you could find that talent. And if you find that talent and that you can work and become the best in your field. We lose 7% of our young people because we see them as troublemakers because we do not understand how to deal with that type of dysfunction. And that can cause a young person to turn to a life of crime. Whereas if we had utilized that talent he has as ADHD, that hyper disorder he has, we could have utilized that to make him a successful young man or woman in our society.
Before. All right, we got Mr. Griffith.
Just before I close,
Mm.
everything, there must be productivity to it. What you all have done today was exceptional, but there must be value to this. And the reason I'm stating this just before I close off here is that because of what I achieved and what I did to help the country as Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police, I said, look, let me provide this assistance to the present government because I don't care. You put politics aside. The Prime Minister has refused. I believe that I can do the same thing to assist in securing Tobago. I did it as minister, I did it as commissioner of police. I would be submitting a similar request to the chief secretary, and I would be providing him with the opportunity of the things that I was able to achieve, and it worked. So I would be writing officially to the chief secretary, and many of the things that I mentioned here that was able to secure Tobago, I intend to do the same and offer. And I hope that he would be mature enough not to turn a blind eye and play politics when it comes to securing this island.